Hello, and welcome back to the Momhood podcast, where we dive deeper into the beautiful complexities of motherhood together. So today we have Shelby Reese.
Hi.
I'm so excited that you're oh my gosh. Okay, wow, you guys, it's literally so early this morning.
It is.
Okay, let's backtrack. I am so excited to have you here with me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, so this is actually our first time meeting,
Yeah.
like in person. I feel like I already know you.
I know.
Like,
I feel like social media has allowed us to really get to know each other.
yeah.
And so when we met in person, it was just we clicked.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I don't know, social media is so weird in that way. Of literally the first time we're hanging out, I'm like, you're literally my best friend now.
Yeah.
So if you guys don't know Shelby, she and her husband started TikTok what would you say, a year ago?
Yeah. So January 31st of last year. So
Okay, wow.
2023, yeah.
That's a quick turnaround.
Yeah.
That's actually so crazy.
It was crazy.
Wow. And you guys have a little one.
Yes, we
Kemp.
do. We have Kemp. So we started social media whenever I was 6 months pregnant.
Okay.
I think about 6 months pregnant.
Yeah.
And I had him in May of 2023.
Oh
So,
my gosh.
I know.
That's so crazy how time flies. We were
I
literally
know.
pregnant around the same time.
Yeah.
Because my due date was, what was your actual due date?
My actual due date was May 3rd, and I had him on May 9th.
May 9th?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think mine was June 6th, and I had her June 16th.
Oh,
so
wow.
Definitely
Yeah.
that, last month when you're, wanting her to get out
Yes,
on your due date, and then it
seriously.
just goes by and by and by.
And you're like, another day, another day.
Yes. Oh, my gosh. That month literally felt like an eternity.
Mm-hmm. It
Oh, my
did.
gosh.
Yeah. And that week after, so you went over your due date. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I did too. And just that week after, it was just the anticipation was so hard.
Yes.
Waiting until you had, until you went into labor.
Yeah.
And then I ended up being induced. So
Me too.
Yeah.
My anticipation started at 37 weeks.
Yeah.
I was like, the moment it was 37 weeks, I'm like, okay, I'm
Any
ready.
day now.
Yeah. So yeah, tell me a little bit about that.
Okay.
You did get induced.
Yes.
What was that situation like? Because I know so many people, there's so many different ways to get induced and so many reasons and all the things. So
Yes. So I was not dilating at all. And I went in for just another checkup, and they were going to do an ultrasound. It was a week after my due date, or 5 days after my due date. And so they did the ultrasound, and they said, he is a big baby. And they said, we, don't feel comfortable sending you home. They had already told us to pack our bags just in case, and we were totally fine with that. So when we got there, we did the ultrasound, and then they told us, they were like, yeah, you're staying tonight. So they called up a wheelchair, and they sent us down to labor and delivery, and we started the process.
Oh
yeah.
my gosh. So you went in totally unprepared.
Yeah, we really didn't know if we were staying or if we were going.
Oh wow. Yeah. What was that like? Because I also got induced. But
Yeah.
I totally knew that if I didn't spontaneously go into labor at a
Right.
certain point, then that I
was the
had
day.
a scheduled date where I woke up in the morning, got my Starbucks, knew I was going to the
Right.
hospital to give birth.
Yeah.
You went in and literally had no idea.
No idea. Yeah.
What was that? Were you terrified?
So my doctor told me that he was going to be on call that night, and he said, or the next night. And so he told me, he was like, I really want to be here for the birth. He said, so just be prepared. Go ahead and pack your bags. And so in the back of my mind, I kind of knew
Okay.
that we were going to be staying.
Yeah.
But it still was kind of up in the air. And then whenever they did the ultrasound and he looked so big, they were just like, let's do it. So
Wow.
yeah. It was fine. It was a little anxious. I was a little anxious about it, but it was, I kind of knew what was coming. So
You had a little inkling
about it.
Yeah. And what's helpful is it's not an immediate progression. You
Right.
have time
Yeah.
before your body kind
yeah.
of kicks in too.
Yeah.
So what was that like?
Yeah. So we started Cervidil that night around 5.
Is that the little pill?
No,
wait.
this is a string. This
Wait.
is a string.
A what?
Yes.
A string goes where? Where does it go?
It's like a tampon.
Does it attach to the baby?
It attaches to the cervix. So they put it in.
I have never heard of that. I've heard of the balloon. I've heard of the forceps. I've heard of Pitocin. I've heard of the whatever the little pill is. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I was really surprised. He had explained it to me in one of our appointments, so I was kind of prepared for it. They do Cytotec and Cervidil.
Cytotec, that's what I was thinking of. Okay.
So this was the Cervidil, so it's a string, and it kind of felt like a tampon, so you kept it in all night long.
Oh my gosh.
And
so it just kind of like tugs on it.
Yeah, and it just softens the cervix.
Wow.
So yeah, it's very interesting. It was a very long piece of string. And
your cervix is like all way up there. Oh my gosh. Yep. Okay, did it hurt when you like had to? I'm like
I know.
We have so many things to talk about, but I'm like so infatuated with this string.
It's such an interesting like concept. So it literally was just a string. There's nothing like attached to it or anything. I guess the medicine is in the string. I don't know. And so they put it in that night, and then I had to leave it in all night long. So like going to the bathroom, things like that. I had to just be very careful not to like pull it or tug on it or anything like that. And it softens the cervix. You leave it in for about 12 hours.
Dang.
So yeah, very interesting.
Okay, so 12 hours. So how long was the start, like you enter into the hospital to leaving?
Right.
Like how long was that for you?
So my Cervidil started at like 5 p.m. So I went in about 3 for my appointment, did the ultrasound, everything. They sent me straight to labor and delivery. The worst part, I think, of the whole experience was getting my IV. And that sounds terrible.
No, it does not.
It was awful.
Because I'm right there with you.
Yes.
Did they put it in your hands?
They had to. Yeah.
Oh, they say they have to. And I remember because before giving birth, I was looking at all the birthing videos on YouTube.
Same.
And they were saying oh yeah, you should totally put it in your forearm because it's so much easier. You know, you're going to be on the birthing ball, moving around.
Right.
Anytime I put even a little slightest bit of pressure on my hand, I was like, that's what I was focusing on instead of the contractions.
Yes, I totally get that. They tried to do it in my forearm first on this side. And then they tried to do it in my hand on this side because this is where the cords were. This is where all of this stuff was. They could not get it in. And so then they moved to this side and they went straight for the hand. And when they put it in, they hit a nerve. Oh. And my entire hand just went numb. My blood pressure immediately dropped.
No way.
I kept telling them, I was like, you are on a nerve and it is hurting so bad. Finally it, started to subside, but
so they just had to take it out and redo it.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Oh my gosh.
I ended up, they had to take it out. I kept saying you can't leave this in here. Because I think she was going to try and leave it in there thinking it would just go away.
Because I'm sure so many people like me it did not hit a nerve. I was just a weenie. And she ended up taking it out, thankfully, and putting it in again. And it was fine. But I did have a little bit of tenderness and I could feel it for months after having him. No
Thankfully,
way.
I'm good now. But yeah,
that
it was
insane.
Crazy.
I mean, because you hear about that with epidurals and stuff where people have nerve damage or crazy things like that. But an IV,
an IV
of all things, that's wild.
It was a little crazy. So we started that. We started Cervidil at 5, and then stayed all night. About 4 a.m. they came in. They took out the Cervidil, and then they let me shower, which I was super grateful for.
Oh, yeah.
So I got to shower, and then that's when they started Pitocin.
Oof.
Yeah.
How is that? Because Pitocin, everyone is scared of Pitocin.
Yeah.
It
was fun. I went into it with the mindset that I was going to try for as long as I could to not get an epidural. I really wanted to do it naturally. I did not make it very far.
Girl, same.
I said, I went in knowing that if it got to that point, I was obviously going to ask for an epidural. I was not against it at all. Mm-hmm. But I just wanted to try. I wanted to see how far I could get. I think it was like a challenge.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, anything that gets you through labor,
exactly.
like whatever it is. Yes. Yeah, because I was the same way. I was like, I'm just going to see how far I can make it just to say I did.
Right, just to say I did it.
Yeah, I made it 2 centimeters, actually, 2 centimeters.
I think
they told me no.
Yeah. Oh, no.
They told me no, and they were like, you need to wait a little bit longer.
Oh, my goodness.
So then I did 4 centimeters, and then by the time I did 4 centimeters, they gave me an epidural. The epidural fails. Oh, and then by the time I actually got a working epidural, it was 7 centimeters. So I'm like, well, I guess I made it far, but against my will.
Right. They kind of made you wait that far. So I am super impressed that you even did that, because it was rough. I made it to about 3 centimeters, and I was like, okay, I'm ready. I just remember sitting in the recliner that was in our room and just crying. I had tried the ball. I tried to walk around, and I was doing everything I could. And I looked at Dylan and I was like, I think I need the epidural. And I just started squalling, and he was like, why are you crying? And I said, I just feel like I'm giving up. And he was like, Shelby, this is okay. It's okay.
Yeah. And isn't that so hard? We put so much pressure on ourselves to go through all of that and muscle through it, and then we feel like a failure. But it's either way,
we're bringing life into this world.
We're bringing life. You had been bringing life for the past 9 months.
Right?
Are you kidding me? I was the same way. I just remember being so defeated and feeling like not feeling good enough, feeling like I'm failing, like my body's failing, first of all. Right. That was a whole other thing of the fact that you got induced in the first place. Right. Because mine didn't have to do with your size. Mine had to do with it was just my body was just not working. Right. Yeah. And so even going into the induction, I was already like, well, dang it, my birth plan naturally. Yeah. This in the wind.
I understand that. Because I wanted to go into labor naturally. We were walking, doing the ball, everything we could before it happened. And I went in and they were like, you are not dilated at all. Your cervix is not soft. You are not ready. But anyway, it was just, I felt defeated in that moment. But as soon as they put that epidural in, it was like a switch flipped. Yeah. Yeah. And I just felt so much better. So.
And then your body relaxes, ironically. Yeah. Because how long were you in labor before you got it?
So I was in labor not long. I think I got it around lunch or a little bit before lunch. And we had started Pitocin around 5 a.m. So probably 4 hours, 4 or 5 hours, something like that. So, yeah, not too long. And my contractions were not bad to start with.
That's awesome.
For the first, couple hours, they were definitely manageable. It was just that last hour that I was like, okay. And then you see the screens and you think, am I really, are these they looked small. And I was like, and they were like, that has nothing to do with the pain. But
I know.
I kept looking at the screens thinking, oh my goodness, my contractions are so small. I should not be in this much pain.
I was looking at them and thinking, oh, those are so big. My body must finally be kicking in. I must be dilating. Yeah. And no. Yeah. It's so not funny. Correlated.
Yeah. It was actually funny because we could see the other rooms, all their screens were on our screen.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. And so Dylan kept looking at this one room and he was like, that girl is going through it right now. She is a rock star. And because her lines were up and down and up and down. And it's funny because she messaged us after we gave birth, and she was like, hey, I was giving birth too. And then Dylan said, ask her if she was in room 7. And I did. And she was like, yeah, that was me. And I said, Dylan was cheering you on, girl, because Your contractions are all over the place.
Dylan, the biggest hype man.
He was the whole time. It was like room 7. Yeah. So anyway, it was just funny. It was a small world that she even reached out and was like, "Hey, I was giving birth next door."
Oh my gosh, what are the odds of that?
I know.
I remember my nurse actually knew us, and which that was hilarious. But she obviously couldn't say until after the fact. But I came in 3 days postpartum to just for like a checkup or something. Got a lot going on down there, and I go in and she's in there, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, like it's so good to see you!" Like I immediately start bawling because she was literally the best thing ever, and she was like, "Oh my gosh!" And at that point, she was like, "I knew where I knew you guys. Like I follow you guys."
Oh, that's so sweet. That's so sweet. I think nurses are just angels, like labor and delivery nurses. I had one that all of my nurses were great. I had one that really got me through my labor, and then I had 2 that came in for the delivery, and then the one even in the before everything started, she was amazing, my night shift nurse. And then the next one came in, and she just really worked hard because I didn't want to have a C-section. And so that was another thing. I was not dilating very fast, and so thankfully the epidural did sort of work. They did have to come in later and give me like another dose of medicine, and I felt so much better. But I didn't start pushing until probably like 7 or 8. So I was in labor for about from 5 to 7. And then I pushed for I think it was about 2 hours. I'm not 100% sure, but I just remember I was not dilating. I was stuck at 6 centimeters, and my doctor came in and he was like, "Okay, I recommend that we do a C-section." And before that, right before he came in, my nurse was like, "Listen, if you don't want it, it's okay. Like whatever you're comfortable with." She said, "But we'll do whatever." And so I said, "Okay." And when he came in and told me that, I got really nervous, and I said, "Can we just wait just a little bit longer?" And he was like, "Yeah, we can." He said, I'll let you wait an hour, and if you're not dilated within an hour, we're going to go ahead and do it." And I said, "Okay." So my mom and Dylan came in the room. My mom had stepped out for a minute. She came back in the room, and they just put their hands on me, and they prayed over me, and I get choked up even thinking about it. But after they prayed over me, my nurses came in, and she was like, we're going to get you dilated." She said, "We're going to do this." And I said, "Okay." She took it as a challenge, I think. Yeah. And we did different positions, things like that. Of course, I was in the bed because I had the epidural, so I couldn't do much. But we ended up doing lots of different things. And then when he came back in, I had dilated like 2 centimeters. And my gosh. It was crazy because I had been stuck there for a few hours. And so, it was, I think actually I maybe was like 9 centimeters. So it wasn't long. And then I was pushing not too long after that.
That is amazing. The power of prayer.
I'm telling you.
Like, seriously, that is crazy.
Yes. It was one of the most powerful moments that I've ever experienced. Like, you could just feel the Spirit, was there with us. So
what a sweet birth story. I mean, it didn't start out the way that you envision or whatever, but there's still so much goodness within all of the chaos, like left field things that get thrown at you. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was great. And then Kent was born, and unfortunately he had to go to the NICU, so that was really hard.
Yeah, tell me a little bit. Yeah. I know we talked a little bit yesterday about that, and I was saving it because, that is, I mean, so many people can relate to that of, you want that golden hour and you want to snuggle your baby and you think it's going to be this peaceful postpartum period when you're in the hospital. Right. And for a lot of people, that's not the case.
Doesn't happen.
What was that like for you?
Yeah, so it was really scary because it was just unexpected.
Yeah.
So everything was fine. They were ready. Like, I had even undone my gown for skin to skin, and I was looking down after he was born, and just all of a sudden I could tell, like, the doctor just, like, flipped. And he was just in work mode. And he called for the NICU team to come, and I had no clue what was going on. Dylan had no clue what was going on. We were both asking so many questions. Thankfully, the nurses were, very helpful, and they answered every question we had. So we didn't get to do skin to skin. They took him over to the side. They wrapped him up. He had ingested meconium, and because he was, a week past due at that point, and I had been in labor for a while, and so it caused a small pneumothorax, so small hole in his lung. And so anyway, he went to the NICU. I did get to hold him for about 30 seconds before he went to the NICU. He was all wrapped up, but they did let me hold him, and then they were like, okay, we've got to get him going. And so he went
that
on.
must have been so hard to hand him off.
It was very hard to hand him off, yeah. I just remember I'm, like, tearing up right now thinking about it.
I'm sure I'm going to be crying every episode, so don't worry about it.
So anyway, I sent him off, and it was okay. I think in that moment, I felt peace about it, because the handoff was hard, but, like, knowing that he was in good hands and that he was going to the NICU, and, like, I just knew that he was going to be okay. And so I kind of stayed in recovery for, I think it was about an hour, ate some food, and I felt much, much better. I ended up getting back to the room, I think it was around 1 a.m., and about 1:30 we were able to finally go to the NICU and see him. And so, of course, he was hard-headed, and they couldn't get an IV in anywhere other than his umbilical cord, which made it very difficult to hold him. So we weren't allowed to hold him. We probably could have, depending on who the nurses were, but just for his safety and our safety, we didn't want to, mess anything up. So we didn't get to hold him. I had him on Tuesday night, and I finally got to hold him for the second time, on Friday.
Oh, my gosh.
So, yeah, it was hard, but...
What were those 2 days? You said it was 2 days. What were those 2 days like of, like, how did you spend your time? Because I can only think of how I spent my time.
Yeah.
But your story is just so different.
Yeah. So I spent a lot of time pumping.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't latch. He couldn't, try and breastfeed or anything.
Well, yeah, because you can't hold him.
Right.
Oh, my gosh.
So, thankfully, the lactation nurses came in, and they were very helpful. But, yeah, I spent a lot of time pumping, running milk, and colostrum down to the NICU. They did have to supplement some. So, he took formula, and then he also took whatever breast milk I could give him. But it was actually really nice. They allowed me to stay in the hospital for an extra day than normal, just because he was in the NICU. So we got discharged at the same time.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah, I was super thankful. I know. So they allowed us. He had his own room in the NICU, so we were allowed to go in whenever we wanted, and we could stay however long we wanted. So we were super, super grateful for that. They had chairs in there, and we got to hang out, especially when they were doing shift changes. We like to be in there because that's when the nurses tell the new nurse that's coming in, they give them updates on everything. So if we were able to be in there, we tried to be, because that way we got an update, on everything. The NICU was just, those nurses will always hold a special place in my heart because they were just amazing. Like, they took care of my baby. Every time we would come in, there would be a new note on the dry erase board. There would be a new craft that they did. It was around Mother's Day, so they made sure that they did a Mother's Day craft with him. He had his feet prints, done. It was just, they just made it such a, like, special time while we were in there. So I was super grateful for that. And then, unfortunately, I wasn't able to have him in there with me at night. I didn't love that. But I did get some rest. And so, if we're looking at, the positives,
side, right?
I was able to rest, So anyway, it was quite an experience, but everybody there, you can tell that that's what they're meant to do. And I was super grateful that we had the best nurses. So
that's so sweet.
Yeah.
And what was it like when you got to go home with him?
Oh, that was just the best.
Because I'm sure those 3 days were like an eternity to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were. So finally, we got to go home on Friday, and we didn't get discharged until about 7 p.m. We had about an hour drive home. Thankfully, my mom was there, so she had, cooked us dinner and everything. And so the grandparents were waiting on us when we got there, and when we pulled in, it was just like everything started to fall into place. Like, I just knew what I was supposed to do. When we got home, I took him into the room. We started breastfeeding, and thankfully our breastfeeding journey was so good.
Oh my gosh. What a blessing.
Yeah, seriously. That was something I prayed for because I wanted to breastfeed so bad, and he latched right away, even after, not being able to for the first 3 days of his life.
Oh my gosh.
He latched pretty easily. We did supplement, I think, for like the first day or two at home, and then we didn't have to supplement until he was almost 10 months old, maybe 10 months.
Wow.
So yeah, it was great.
What an accomplishment.
Yeah.
Breastfeeding is hard.
It is so hard.
It is so taxing. The fact that you made it 10 months, that is amazing.
It is. It's very hard. And going back to work is, I think, what kind of, made it hard because I was having to pump at work.
Right.
And then, as he got older, he was just, once he started eating table food, he was like, I don't have any interest in that anymore.
Yeah.
So I was just thankful for the 10 months that we got to have, breastfeeding. So yeah, it was great.
That's so sweet. And so you had a great breastfeeding experience. Was that good for, like, your guys' bonding? Like, how was that for you?
Yeah, I think so, because we didn't get that initial, like, moment in the hospital, even for the first few days.
Your moment.
Yes. When he latched at home for the first time and it was just me and him in our bedroom, I thought, like, this is it. Like, this is what I prayed for. It's being answered right now. And just having, like, all of my family in the living room waiting on us, and Dylan came in there, and it was just the three of us for just a split second. It was just all I could have ever dreamed about. So yeah, it was. Oh my gosh,
that's like
wonderful.
Getting me so emotional.
I know, and I think that's what helped me, like, with my postpartum journey, was just knowing, like, that everything was going to be okay, even though we had gone through that for the first, 3 days. And I can't imagine, my heart goes out to all those NICU mamas that have to stay for months and months. But just, like, knowing that we got that moment after, not having it for the first 3 days was, like, just the encouragement that I needed to get through, postpartum.
Absolutely,
because postpartum is so hard.
Yeah, tell me about your postpartum experience. I know we talked. Yeah. We talked a little bit about it already. So Kemp is 11 months.
Yes, he'll be. Yeah, he's almost 1, and so it was quite the journey. I didn't, thankfully, by the grace of God, didn't experience any severe like postpartum depression. Of course, I had a little bit of anxiety, but I think all moms go through that.
Yeah.
And, you know, I would say like just, I don't even know if I would call it baby blues, because it was just hard. Like having a baby is just hard.
Yeah.
And learning a new routine, and, you know, I had taken off of work, so I wasn't in my normal routine. Little sleep, it just kind of changes things, and it makes it hard.
Regardless.
Yeah,
your
regardless.
whole world is rocked.
Mm-hmm. It is. And so I'm so grateful for my community. I think, like, having a village makes a huge difference. And
was it family?
Yeah, it was family and some friends.
Mm-hmm.
They made sure to come and visit me and check in on me, text me. And then my family definitely, you know, they were a huge help. And my mom and dad live 3 hours away, so it was very hard not having them there like every second of the day. But it was, you know, it was just good to have people like checking in on you and making sure that you were doing okay. Dylan was a huge help. I couldn't have done it without him, because he definitely made sure that I, you know, was taken care of. Of course, he took care of the baby as well, but he really wanted to make sure that I was okay. And so
can we pause?
Yeah.
Because what a good man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, because I feel like it's so easy to overlook the mom and immediately like, oh, I have to take care of the new baby.
Right. And that is like totally understandable. Like you hear people talk about the dads helping with the baby all the time. You know, you want to help the baby, but the mamas, you know, they need some attention as well. And Dylan did a good job of that. He made sure that I was fed and, you know, taken care of. So, yeah, I was super grateful for that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you work.
Yes.
So what, like, did you have maternity leave?
Yes. So it actually worked out great. We knew when we started trying in August that if I got pregnant in August that I would be having him around May. And so, you know, April, May. So I would be able to take off the last month of school and then have summer. So we kind of planned it that way. Thankfully, you know, it worked out. And so, yeah, I took off May, the entire month, saved up all of my days, and my dad even gave me some of his days.
Oh, my, is your dad also a teacher?
He is,
oh
yeah.
Oh my gosh, so that's so sweet.
I know. In the state of Alabama, they have like the sick bank, and so if you put your days in there, you can share them with anybody in any school system.
Wow.
So, yeah,
okay,
it was
more
really
states need to do that, because that is a great idea.
I hope they do. I hope other states have that. But yeah, it is nice. So
because maternity leave sucks.
Yeah.
Like in the US, maternity leave is absolutely atrocious. Yeah. I don't remember what country it is. I'm going to butcher this. Maybe Sweden or like Switzerland or I don't know, something. Yeah. They have like a whole year.
Oh, that would be amazing. I think Canada does that.
Yeah. Canada, I'm sure there's multiple, because that, it like, the fact that the U.S. like maybe gives you 6 weeks, 12 weeks.
We're so behind. Yeah.
4 weeks. Like, it just depends.
Yeah. So for teachers, this is crazy. For teachers, we had 6 weeks unpaid.
Unpaid?
Yeah. So you have to use your days. Yeah.
Oh,
like you have to use, you can save up your sick days. And so I used whatever sick days I had saved up, and I have not been teaching for too long at that point.
Yeah.
So I didn't have very many sick days saved up. And then I had, I think, 3 personal days. So I was able to use those 3 and then whatever I had, which I think was about 2 weeks. So maybe 10 sick days. So I needed, I think, 9 more. And my dad was like, he's been teaching for years. So he had tons of sick days saved up.
Thank goodness for your dad, because maternity leave is not going to do it.
Right. So I, thankfully I didn't have to, lose any money on that. But, it was kind of crazy. So I took off May and then had June and July, went back to school in August, which
you went back to
hard.
School.
Yes.
What made you want to do that?
So
teaching school.
But I was also in school.
Oh, okay.
So I took off. I'm trying to think. So I was in school for my master's degree.
Wow.
Yeah. And I think I took off, I don't know if I took off the entire semester. I think I took off the second half of the semester in the spring because I knew I would be having camp. I took one class in July and then took 2 classes in August. And then I went back to work in August as well. So I was doing my master's classes and teaching full time. And we had started social media in January.
That's a whirlwind.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I didn't know you were literally in masters.
Yeah.
That is insane.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I want to fast forward. You were in master's school. This is your last year teaching. So you're leaving your job, but you did all of this schooling. You're in master's, and now you're going to be homeschooling.
Right. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's so exciting.
Yeah.
But you spent so much time going to school.
Yeah.
Does that hurt a little?
It's hard. It is so hard. So I graduated last December. So in December. And then I had one semester, left. And I made the decision that I was going to go home after this year. Just to be at home with the baby, which I'm super excited about.
Yeah.
And so it's been really difficult to try and come to terms with it because I feel like teaching is what I'm called to do. But I also feel like the Lord has opened up this door for me to be at home with Kemp while he's young, and I can always go back into the classroom if I wanted to.
Yeah.
I'll definitely be keeping my teaching certificate up, but I'm going to be able to use what I've learned to teach Kemp. And so hopefully we will be able to homeschool if that's where the Lord leads us, and I'll have all of this knowledge and information under my belt whenever that time comes. And so I know that it's difficult for me to, come to terms with, but I'm super grateful that I have this opportunity and I'm not going to pass it up while my baby is little.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What a sweet perspective to have of you put in all of this hard work with your education, but that's your baby.
Yeah, that's my baby.
Yeah.
And he's, what's more important. And so if I can pour everything into him, and I'll do it. That's what I want to do. So
that's so sweet. Okay. So thank you so much for talking.
Yeah.
We have such an exciting announcement.
I know.
Can you please elaborate?
So I'm pregnant.
Oh my gosh.
I'm so excited.
That is insane.
Yeah. I'm super excited about it.
So wow. That is so exciting.
Yes.
How do you feel? Let's sum it up because the battery is dying over here. Let's sum it up in 3 words. How do you feel about baby number 2?
I feel excited.
And that's a wrap.
And that's a wrap.